sitting on the wet juice.
Welcome to our show.
Hey guys, shut up. Me, I'm so dyslexic. It's so bad at when I do voiceovers. Nope.
Like and subscribe if you like this video.
Don't start a YouTube channel with your sister. All you do is laugh, and then you cry, and then your mascara runs because it's natural mascara. Although mine's holding. Thanks for watching our videos, guys. Videos, guys. Video, guys.
Thanks for watching our videos, guys. Anyway, I spilled water all over myself.
Hey guys, I'm Vicky,
And I am Julie.
and we're Naturally Minded Sisters. The face is behind it. We did a sort of a post about like a welcome intro post when we first started our channel, but we were not together. We're both military spouses, and getting together is not always easy because our husbands' jobs pull us apart. So we are finally together. She's visiting, and we wanted to make a sort of an intro, like our story type video.
Yep, so like she said, we're both military spouses. I'm stationed up with my husband in Wyoming and they are in Las Vegas. So we are just down here visiting for a few weeks and figured we would make some content for you guys while we're here, make some videos together. So while I was here, we wanted to just share a little bit about our background with you guys. You guys know some of our background with our mom and like how we kind of grew up more like holistically than a lot of our friends did. And so we just wanted to kind of share like a little bit about that and then kind of how that led us into having like less intervention births, or, you know, in my case, I had a C-section, but why we planned to have home births, and then like why I still plan to have home birth VBACs, and like why Vicky chose a home birth and a birth center birth instead of choosing to go to a hospital for our first babies. So Vicky can kind of share a little bit about like her experience growing up and like why that kind of, or like how I guess that kind of shaped like who she is now and like why she chose the things that she did.
So like Julie said, we both grew up with a more naturally minded mother. So our friends, you know, we would go to our friends' houses and they did things way differently than we did, and we were like, oh, I guess that we're different. But you know, here we are, you know, 30 years later doing the same stuff. So we grew up watching our siblings all, there's three more of us below. I'm the oldest, Julie's the second, and there's three more. And we watched mom give birth in our home to her last three kids. So a lot of our friends had no clue what that was like. And they were like, oh, your mom's pregnant? I'm like, yeah, I can't leave the house because I'm on call. Like, oh, doesn't she just go to the hospital? I'm like, no, I have to watch the rest of my siblings while she has a baby. Yeah. And
but that was like our usual too. It was like not weird for us to be like, yeah, my mom's gonna have a baby at the house. Like most people think like you do have a hospital birth, but we wouldn't have thought like, oh yeah, she has to go to the hospital. Like that wasn't our norm. So like me growing up, I was just thinking like, this is just how people give birth. They just have babies in their houses, and typically like what 98% of the population has their babies in hospital. So that's very unusual. And to have like a mom that was, you know, different in that way to give birth at home and was kind of like a hippie or whatever, was just kind of, I don't know, it just shaped I think who we are, but it was just not unusual for us either. So when we both got pregnant, when we were close to like, you were in your 30s, I was almost 30, and both of us assumed like, oh yeah, we'll just have our babies at home. Like that's just how we grew up. And so yeah. I think for me it was, I couldn't find somebody near me, but that was like my first instinct was, oh, I need to find a home birth midwife so I can have a home birth. Just because that was my norm. It was like weird for me to be like, I need to find a doctor. So I don't know, what are some other things I guess that we did growing up that most people would think is kind of strange?
I mean, we got, like when we got sick, she gave us like different kinds of remedies and medicines and things that I know.
Like homeopathy?
I know, yeah, like I know now people didn't get sick and like mom didn't like put pressed garlic on your feet. Yeah. And wrap them up and, you know, with saran wrap and put a sock on at night, and then you're like 75% better in the morning. This still works, by the way. I'll have to do a video about that at some point.
When we had hiccups, we got Magfoss.
Yes.
We always had homeopathy on hand for like every ailment. So like muscle spasms and all of that, you got homeopathy. And then we were using essential oils. She was using like tea tree oil and lavender and stuff on us, like when we were really little. And I never thought that that was like out of the norm. And then I got older and people were like, oh yeah, essential oils, like this is a new thing. And I'm like,
yeah, they were like that. Natural remedies. We're like, natural remedies. That's all we use.
That's all we've ever used. Like Remedy and all of like those sorts of things. I'm like, this is just something I've used for like the past probably like 25 years or plus of my life, and so it's just not like an unusual thing for me to like have natural remedies on hand for my own kids. I'm like, yeah, we have like ibuprofen or whatever for emergencies, but it's not like something I am immediately like, oh, get out the ibuprofen. It's like, oh, what's the natural remedy for this? Because that's what our mom always did. Like, it wasn't just immediately give Tylenol. It was, what can I give first, you know, before you need Western medicine. So
yeah.
I think that was
fevers. She treated fevers different, you know, than mainstream. When you said like, you know, instead of running right to the Tylenol, I thought immediately of fevers. Like, she would let us have a fever. We were allowed to have a fever, which, you know, to help kill off whatever was our bodies were trying to kill off. So
yeah,
I feel like we grew up not afraid of fevers. Like when my son got his first fever, I was not like, oh my gosh, like what's gonna happen? Like he's gonna die. Like no, because you know, in first time moms, we all, you know, most of us do have those moments where we're like, we don't know what to do because it's the first time it's happening. But when his first fever came around, and I think it was just a teething fever, he was like popping a tooth, very low grade, but you could tell he was kind of sluggish, and I was just like, oh, okay, well here we go, I know what to do. Right. It wasn't anything that scared me away, you know, because I was, again, we were raised like that, so.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any other things that like our friends or people thought was kind of weird for us growing up. I don't feel like we were like overly like weird about food, or like our food wasn't like all organic or anything like that growing up. Mainly probably because of like budgeting reasons and stuff like that, but
probably availability too.
But we still had, I think we had a garden and stuff growing up, but we were also all homeschooled. So my mom homeschooled all 5 kids, and I mean obviously like that is more unusual back then, at least. I feel like most kids did go to public school when we were growing up, and we didn't really know many homeschooling families. So it's a lot more popular now, I think, for sure. But people are always like, wait, you were homeschooled? That's weird. Like,
that's one of the things people would say all the time about us, because we were, I get what the term would be like well-adjusted homeschoolers or something, you know. It's almost like it's a put down, because it's like we assume you say you're a homeschooler that you're some psycho and you're
super weird.
You're weird, or you're into like doing, I don't know, just whatever weird thing they have in their mind that homeschoolers do. And people would meet us and be like, you guys you were homeschooled, you know, and you know, you guys have college degrees yet you were homeschooled, you know. Like, you know, that sometimes too is, I know, if you actually look at the stats on like college and homeschoolers, most homeschoolers finish college, you know, really early and with high grades, and but no one knows that. They have these like, there's just preconceived notions of like you're living on a farm and wearing denim and like
overalls,
doing weird stuff. Yeah, overalls. Yeah, I don't know. Which I think overalls came back since the 90s anyway. So
they're in
now. But yeah, I think that was also something, you know, if you think about our good friends, how many of them were homeschooled?
Maybe a couple.
Like all of my good friends except for one.
I'm thinking like, when we were in youth group, there were a couple people that were close to us that were homeschooled, but then eventually they went to public school.
That's the thing. One of my best friends went to public school, homeschooled for a while, went back to public school, she went back and forth.
I didn't know many people who I think stayed homeschooled for like the entirety of, I mean, we were pulled from public school when we were younger, but like I don't know anybody who was pulled from public school and then stayed homeschooled until they graduated. So like all of us graduated from being homeschooled, like, you know, top of our class.
Yeah, top of my class. Woo! Class of 04.
Yeah, class of 06.
Yeah, with our mom and dad's signatures on our degrees. Like that's another thing. We have I have my high school diploma.
Yeah.
And it's signed by mom and dad, and they just kind of like made one for us or bought it offline or something. And it's kind of cute. Like I've had people comment and be like, "Oh, you have your high school diploma on the wall," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's fun. Look at it. It's my mom and dad's signature." And we always do the joke of like, you know, the class reunion was a blast. You know, like
it was just myself.
It was me, myself, and I. But yeah, I was thinking like all of our I would say 99% of our friends, maybe 98, were public school friends, and people just, people are like, oh, how do you get friends if you're homeschooled, or how do you stay? What if you can't do sports? You can't go to prom? Like,
Yeah.
How many proms were you at?
1 prom and 3 homecomings.
Yeah, and I was what was it, a homecoming? With
1 homecoming or 2 homecomings?
With Brianna and Sarah.
Yeah.
Was it a homecoming?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
homecoming.
So I went to a homecoming with a friend when I was in college. So I mean, and not like that's the end all be all. Like, oh, you missed some great experience. I know people who were in public school who didn't go to their prom on purpose. I think my husband went to his last one because he thought, well, maybe I should just go, see what it's all about. And he ended up winning. I guess it was like prizes or something. I didn't know. Like you could win. Like this one had a raffle and like prizes. And I said, well, now I want to go to prom because I want prizes. Like
when you think about it, it's not like it's that great of a thing anyway. Like the experience is. I mean, yeah, with going with friends and stuff was pretty fun. But like just overall, it wasn't like anything like amazing. And I think people think like homeschoolers miss out on so much if they like don't go to these public school things and all of these like sporting events and all of this stuff. And I'm like, I don't feel like I missed out on anything like that because it just wasn't like on my radar. Like I didn't really care about it. And so I think when you go to public school, you're like made to care about those specific things. And so if you like aren't going to football games, like, or you're not popular, or like you're not going to these dances, it's like we didn't really care because it wasn't like something that we needed to be involved in, I guess.
Yeah,
like I mean, it's nice, I guess, to like be invited to dances and things. Like I went with, I think 2 of my different boyfriends invited me to like a prom and a homecoming, and then like I went with friends for like the rest. But I don't know, it just wasn't like something that I felt like was necessary as part of my life. Like it's fine, like I went to them, but it's not like
exactly
that important.
If we'd never gone to one, it wouldn't be like we missed out on something I think is great, like that needed to happen. I mean, we knew how to garden. We were being taught how to sew. And I know you didn't care much about
Cooking,
sewing, but
like,
cooking, we were taught how to cook.
Yeah, we were always told like, or taught how to like cook. We knew how to take care of our younger siblings, so we knew how to change diapers by the time we were both moms. Like we changed lots of diapers.
Yeah.
I mean, we knew how to iron. I mean, there were things that I think people just, it's almost like a lost skill because people just aren't teaching their kids this stuff, or they just don't see them as frequently because they are in school all day.
Yeah. Yeah, when you get home, then there's homework, and then there's no time for, my dad taught me to change oil and change tires before I went on a road trip, and I don't know if he ever taught you those things, but...
I can check my oil.
That's fine, it's enough.
It's something I didn't really care about.
So overall, I think we had a pretty well-rounded homeschooling experience. I know there are some people who go through homeschooling and feel like they missed out on stuff, or that they are, unprepared, and they're, for life, but I think we at least had a really good homeschool experience. So that was another thing that was sort of different from mainstream, which was, how percentage-wise, how many people, at least in our generation, went to public school versus homeschool. It's I think the numbers are huge now.
The numbers have gotten a lot bigger because of like the state of the world and certain things that are going on in the public school system that we just won't mention. But I think that's why a lot of people are pulling their kids now, because they're kind of like, oh, we don't want our kids learning this stuff. But back then it was more, it didn't have anything to do with that. It was more so just, I got bullied a little bit.
I went through public school, I went through 6th grade, and she went through 4th grade.
Yeah.
And our military brats, military spouses, and anybody that's, in that same situation, military brat or spouse, you guys usually move a lot, right? We move. And I think my mom had just gotten to a point where it was so many moves all the time. I was in 3 different public schools in 2 different states for 1st grade, which is like insane. Like you're pulling and putting the kids and back and forth. So I think she wanted some more stability for us in the schooling. I think she probably always wanted to homeschool. Honestly, like I have to ask her now. I'm curious, but I know she's talked about it. But some of the reasons she was getting bullied.
Jeannie was getting bullied.
Jeannie she was in kindergarten.
Well, it was more so Jeannie getting bullied on the bus, and then me sticking up for her, and then me getting like bullied in return for that. So it was more so like that was one of the reasons. Was me. I would come home every day like crying from the bus because kids were being mean, and I think that was kind of like the final straw. Like she said, like our mom kind of was like tinkering with the idea of homeschooling us anyway. And then that was kind of like, all right, that's it. Like we're pulling all of the kids and we're just gonna start homeschooling. And we were moving like a couple months later anyway.
Yeah.
To go to Maryland, I think it was that move.
Yeah.
And then we ended up homeschooling for, when was that? That was when we lived in the RV park and we were homeschooled in an RV for like, what, 7 months?
Oh, yeah, we lived in an RV, that was fun. RV life, that's a different video.
Yeah, different video. But yeah, so that was kind of like our homeschooling experience right there. But I feel like overall, all of us siblings are very bonded and very close, and that's probably why, like, you don't typically see like a 17-year-old sister who's still as close with her like newborn sister, because like they were 17 years apart. Now you're what, 37?
37.
37, and our youngest sister is 19, and like we're all so close though, like because we were always all home together. And I think that that's the reason why we still have that like close bond with like all of our siblings.
That's
because we were always all home together and we weren't always separated. Like you did go off to college and stuff, but I feel like because you had those few years at home with her still, because you were at home and homeschooled, that made the difference, I think.
It is, that's another sort of a perk, which I didn't even think about, is that you could be, you're with your siblings, you know, your sibling group, and so you do form a different bond than when you're all separated all day long.
Yeah.
And with your parents too, I think, you know, different, it's totally different. I mean, and it's not, and we know it's not feasible for everybody, not everyone can do it, but it's definitely something that we, growing up, enjoyed. I was able to study whatever I wanted. As my reason, like one of my things that had already happened before were getting bullied on the bus was that I was getting in trouble for working ahead. I was getting in trouble for reading ahead. One math teacher in 6th grade, I got in trouble for doing extra math problems. So like, you know, they would give you like, you know, lesson 35, do the odd numbers only, right? So I would finish the odd numbers and I would just be sitting there and I was like, I guess I'll do the evens. And so I'd flip the paper and like do the evens. And she's like, what are you doing? You can't do the evens. And today's the odds. Don't you follow directions? And I was like, yeah, here's the odds, lady. Like I already did them and I'm just sitting in your class for their 45 minutes. Like this is great.
While everyone else is still working.
Well, everyone's working. So it was one of those things where you used to and if people don't think that still happens today, our cousin was pulled out and homeschooled because of the same thing. And he's probably 19 years younger than us. Who? Ian. Oh. So yeah.
I was like, wait, who was pulled out?
Yeah, so he did some schooling at home because he was like, again, getting in trouble all those years later. So that's probably just a teacher specific thing, but I don't know. That was another kind of a strange, one of the reasons, but the bullying was the last straw for sure.
It's kind of like, I mean, that's across the board in public schools. They're very much like they want you to just follow directions, and it's, if you don't do this, you're in trouble. Even if it's something that is good, like doing extra math. It's more so we just want like compliance from kids versus like kids that think for themselves. And I think that that's kind of another reason why mom wanted us out of the public school system as well, is because you're kind of like just taught to be like this certain type of person and have these certain beliefs and values, versus homeschool, you get to like mold and shape your kids in the way you want them to be versus just whoever your teacher wants you to be or like the school system wants you to be. So I definitely feel like, you know, we were raised with Christian values, and that's like a no-go in public school these days especially. And so we were able to like implement that into our school. Like we did a lot of like Christian and Bible study type work. And then our mom also got to pick like all of our curriculum. So like we weren't learning things like the Big Bang Theory and all that sort of like weird stuff. I feel like she was able to pick like, yeah, we want to learn like creation studies in science, and we don't want to learn like anything else that's just like super weird about biology or anything like that. I mean, these days it's a lot worse, but I feel like when you are homeschooled, like you get to pick what your children are learning. I mean, to an extent, like they're still learning like a lot of like the same stuff, but there's a lot of like political stuff and, you know, scientific stuff that maybe you don't want your kids to be learning. And I feel like that's why homeschooling is really great now, especially. Yeah. But even back when we were growing up, I feel like it was nice that we had like a very well-rounded education, because I mean, she was able to pick and choose what we were learning, and you know, it fell in line with like who we were as like a family and like our morals too.
Yeah, for sure. Let us know below in the comments if you guys homeschool or if you're thinking about homeschooling. Maybe you were homeschooled as well, and what were your parents' reasons for homeschooling you? What are your reasons for homeschooling? Do you have a favorite curriculum that you absolutely love? You share it all below in the comments. So go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, share it if you want, and go ahead and subscribe to our channel. We've got more natural, nope. We've always got more natural, healthy, low-tax living, home birth, homeschooling video content coming up.